Hi, I'm Kirby Allison. I'm so excited to be here today at the Gaziano Girling Factory here in Kettering, just north of Northampton in the beautiful English countryside. I'm here with bespoke shoemaker Daniel Wegan, widely considered to be probably one of the best bespoke shoemakers around right now, known for his exceptional last making, but also as someone who is able to also construct the shoe through the shoemaking process itself. Daniel, speak to us a little bit about your background in shoemaking, how you became a bespoke shoemaker, and how long have you been at Gaziano?
Well, my shoemaking started in Stockholm, Sweden, where I was born. And I think I got an interest in menswear and men's clothing around the age of 26, so maybe a bit later than others. But I think what I was most drawn to in that world was shoes. And a friend of mine who's a leather worker kind of encouraged my interest and helped me find ways of getting into the trade. And I basically sent emails to anyone and from all over the world to ask, how do you get started? And most of them didn't answer, or probably was looking for somebody with a bit more experience. And one of the few people that answered me was Dean Girling, so I took a trip over to England to have an interview with him and also to visit the other shoemakers to find out more. They accepted me, and a few months later I moved to England, which was about 9 years ago now.
So you really kind of apprenticed and trained underneath Dean and Tony?
Yeah, it's the only place where I have trained, and I've never worked in shoemaking anywhere else. So this is my first. I started my apprenticeship here, and that's where I've stayed.
And now, I mean, you know, they give you a pretty high level of autonomy here. I mean, you kind of have your own little bespoke, you know, workshop within the factory, but you know, you do all the measuring and all the last making, right?
Yeah, they've been very generous with allowing me quite free hands on. I think they saw early that my ambitions was quite high, and they obviously keep a close eye on me to see what I'm doing. But if they see that the shoes look good, customers are happy, I'm kind of allowed to achieve those goals in whichever way I see fit.
Yeah. So what's your approach and philosophy towards bespoke shoemaking? I mean, what do you think that you bring it, you know, that kind of energizes you and that you're passionate about?
I think I like perfection. In any handmade craft, the imperfections have to be tolerated. It's just what kind of attitude you have towards these imperfections, and I try to get rid of them. And I'm definitely more of a better safe than sorry approach. So I do quite a lot of fittings. I do a lot of test patterns to make sure that they look the way I want them to look before they end up with the customer.
Yeah. What do you think differentiates, you know, a fantastic bespoke shoe, you know, like one that you make, and, you know, kind of, you know, an ordinary bespoke shoe?
You know, they're all pretty much constructed the same way. I think the biggest difference is the amount of time you spend between each stage. How much time do you spend on the pattern? If you don't like the way it looks, do you take the time to change it, or do you let it go, even though maybe you could improve it? And yeah, just having a quality controlling yourself, especially when you have a small team and not a lot of people around to control you. I have to quality control myself, and as long as I know that my standards are higher than the customer's expectations, we're going to be pretty good.
Okay. But how would you describe the Gaziano Aesthetic for someone that might not be familiar with it?
You know, it's a very overused term, but it's classic with a twist. And it's just combining maybe something more, making it a little bit more international. I think most people that look at it wouldn't say that that's necessarily an English-looking shoe. But I don't think they necessarily would think it's Italian either. I think it strikes a good mix without being too extravagant. It's still very wearable, even though, you know, you can customize colors and patterns and so on. I think a real extravagant customer wouldn't maybe come to us, but maybe not the most conservative either. They want to be, you know, somewhere in the middle. And there are brands that go to those extremes, and we found a niche to be in the middle, especially being such a young brand. We can't compete with the aesthetics of a brand that's been around for 100 years. We have to find our own path.
But you guys certainly have. And I guess, John Lobb would be an example of kind of the most conservative.
For sure.
And then, Berluti or Corte on kind of the far right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They take it a step further. I think we look at that and say, let's tone it down a little bit for the people that think that that's a little bit too far.
And you guys still have a very well-developed patina service, from a bespoke, even from a made-to-order perspective, that is kind of akin to what you might get from a French shoemaker without having to be, to have that really aggressive kind of French silhouette and aesthetic.
Yeah, we have customers that might find a loss that we make that fit them really well. They might like our service, they might, whatever it is that they prefer that draws them to us. If they see something from another firm that they would like to incorporate in the shoes they get from us, we're happy to try to do that for them.
Everyone's very familiar with the Gaziano Aesthetic, kind of this updated, British classic aesthetic. How does that fit with bespoke? I mean, how would you describe the bespoke aesthetic? What is that DNA in relationship to the overall brand?
I think the DNA of the brand and its aesthetic is very important for the customer to relate to. Even if you want a different style than we generally do, we're more than happy to do that for you. But most customers coming into a bespoke shoemaker, they go there because you're an expert and they want your expertise and they want your help. And it's a lot easier if they already like what they see. It's easier for them to approach it than with a completely blank sheet of paper. Mm-hmm. And maybe they like most of it, but might change a few things for their style, or maybe their challenging fit that maybe they can't have exactly what they want. But we try to strike that compromise that we're all happy with.